Hello and welcome back for another midweek magic event. This week we will be playing Historic Pauper, and the deck we decided to queue into is the Bogle Auras deck. We'll be running 4 copies of the Slippery Bogle, a 1-mana creature with hexproof, as well as 4 copies of the Gladecover Scout, which is also a 1-mana creature with hexproof. And then what we're going to be doing is piling on a bunch of auras onto these cards to improve their stats, and we'll be trying to kill our opponent with combat damage. At 1 mana, we have 4 copies of Cartouche of Solidarity, which when it enters creates a 1/1 token, and it also gives the enchanted creature +1/+1 and first strike. The first strike being useful because one of the only ways to remove the hexproof creatures is by double or triple blocking them, so this will make it much more difficult to successfully do so. We're running 4 copies of Ethereal Armor. This 1-mana enchantment gives the enchanted creature +1/+1 for each enchantment we control, and it also gets first strike. So as we continue to pile up enchantments onto our creatures, they will continue to scale. This is one of the primary ways that we increase the size of our creatures in order to win the game. And then we have 4 copies of Sentinel's Eyes. This 1-mana enchantment gives the creature +1/+1 and vigilance, so it can also be used to defend on defense after attacking. In this deck, I don't expect to use the escape ability, but for 1 mana, we can also exile 2 cards from our graveyard and return Sentinel's Eyes to the battlefield. To bridge the gap into our mid-game, we have 4 copies of Hero of Aras. This 2-mana creature reduces the cost of our aura spells by 1 generic pip. And then it also has Heroic, which means that if, for whatever reason, we don't have a hexproof creature on the battlefield and we decide to pile our enchantments onto him, he will get +1/+1 each time he is targeted with a spell that we cast. And then for our mid-game and to close the game out, we have 4 copies of Squire's Devotion. This 3-mana enchantment gives our creature +1/+1 and lifelink. So if our opponent is going wide and trying to race us, this will make that strategy near impossible for them. Additionally, it comes with a 1/1 vampire token that also has lifelink. And then our second way to really buff up our creatures is the Ancestral Mask. This 3-mana enchantment gives our enchanted creature +2/+2 for each enchantment on the battlefield. So this is symmetrical, counting any enchantments that your opponent might have as well. And lastly, we have Nyxborn Hydra, an X cost spell. When it enters with X 1/1 counters on it, and then as a creature it has Reach and Trample. But if we bestow it, we can attach it as an aura to one of our creatures, and the enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each counter on the aura. And then the creature also gains the Reach and Trample ability. So after we've piled up our Ethereal Armor and our Ancestral Mask and other auras onto our hexproof creatures, we'll be looking to use the Hydra to grant it Trample so that it can get past any blockers that our opponent might have on their side of the battlefield. When it comes to the mana base, we're not playing any of the dual lands because the common pauper lands all come into play tapped, and we're really looking to curve out and play out our hexproof creature on turn 1 and then start piling on enchantments on turn 2. So instead, we went for an even split of 12 plains and 12 forests. Before we jump into the gameplay, I'd like to ask you to please like and subscribe the video. It really helps the channel. And without further ado, let's jump into the games. This hand has good mana. It also has our hexproof creature and enchantments to pile onto it. Definitely a keep. Doesn't really matter which one we start off with, so we'll play out the Bogle. Llanowar Elves from our opponent. Here we'll only be able to play out 1 aura. I think we take the Vigilance one first. And then we'll play out the other hexproof creature. opponent creates a bird token. That won't help them. I think we're going to pretty handedly run over this deck. They tutor up a land. We'll play out Ethereal Armor. And then we can even bestow, but we'll wait till next turn. Looks like we might have some unspent mana, so we can get some additional counters on it. Our opponent takes it. They drop down to 14. We won't be blocking if our opponent attacks. We don't want to run the risk of them having any combat tricks. And as the turn goes longer, our creature will just continue to grow in size. They might have a destroy effect for one of our enchantments. And they do. That will set us back a bit. It's a good thing we didn't block. Here we can bestow for 2. And we'll offer up the trade with the scout. Opponent takes 5, down to 9. Now they have quite a few blockers, and they hold back on defense. We draw a dead card, so now it's just a waiting game. For those that don't know, the Fat Chocobo, it will give their creatures trample for the next few turns. If they attack with the bird tokens, we might double block one of them with our Bogle and Scout that are unequipped. They just attack with the Fat Chocobo. Another Hydra is good. We can bestow this for 3 this time. Then with 7 power, if we attack in, we could still lose our Bogle, so we'll just hold back. We're not in any rush here. The origin being instant speed means that, 7/7 reach creature, that would be tough to get through, and we flooded out a bit here as well, which is unfortunate. We'd love to see one of our life gain cards. Another land won't do it. Now our opponent no longer has trample, so they can be chump blocked with our extra hexproof creatures. Our opponent continues to tutor up lands. The fight ability is not any good against us. We're going to note the reaction time for our opponent when we cast this spell to see if there's any type of pause, which might indicate an instant. That did resolve pretty quickly. So if we attack in here with first strike, they don't have any good blocks. If they do have the destruction spell, then we're in a lot of trouble anyway. And they just take it for lethal. Closer than I would have liked. This hand is good. Has a turn 1 scout. Then on turn 2, we can either play the cartouche or the hero, depending on what our opponent does. With 3 lands in hand, we don't need the hero to bridge into the Squire's Devotion, so we'll most likely use our Aura. Lembas from our opponent. Here we'll play out the Cartouche, which protects us a little bit against Edict effects. Here we'll play out our Devotion. Hit for 4. Our opponent appears to be on a Dragon's deck, and I think that the Ancestral Mask should close this one out. We'll swing for 10. Our opponent takes the chump block. We're up to 33 life. And our opponent concedes. This hand has the Scout, but it is missing white mana. I think we have to take a mulligan here. This is much better. We'll keep it. And then what do we throw back? Probably the Devotion. Although with the Ethereal Armor already, we do have scaling. We'll try this. Lead on the Scout. To protect against Edict effects, we actually are going to play out the hero. The artifact deck plays cards like Tithing Blade, which can make us sacrifice a creature. So if we only have the Scout, it will be susceptible. And I think we still put the R on the Scout here. And the Festivities was a good way for our opponent to prevent us getting an Aura onto the Scout. But now they need some follow-up. They make us discard the Ancestral Mask, unfortunate. And they have removal for the hero. So now our Scout is, well, Cartouche will protect it from an Edict effect. We can attack here. Our opponent down to 13. Ichor Wellspring to draw a card. And now they will sacrifice it, draw 3 cards, create a map token. And they're not going to chump here. Unfortunately, we don't draw the enchantment to punish them. We'll just hit for 5. And then I think we do play out the land still in case our opponent has more discard. And they do have it. Here they get to draw a card instead. No black mana showing for our opponent right now, thanks to the auto tapper. And they'll cycle another Wellspring. Chrysalis does have the potential to get large enough to block our Scout. But Trample and First Strike will be very difficult for them to get through. And I think we still hold back our token here instead of offering the trade. If we can play around Tithing Blade, we might as well do so. And our opponent concedes. As expected, this deck is problematic for other decks to deal with. Having the creatures immune to spot removal is very strong ability, and there aren't many good board wipes in the format. Notably, we were a bit susceptible to enchantment removal. If they're able to snipe your ethereal armor and your ancestral masks, then it could be difficult to get through on the ground. There's other Rs you can look at to grant evasion, like flying. One thing to note is the Affinity Artifact deck is one of the more popular decks in Pauper, especially on Arena, and that deck does play some Edict effects. So being able to get an additional body either with 2 creatures or playing out a Cartouche of Solidarity or Squire's Devotion to create a token that you don't mind sacrificing is very useful to protect the creature that you're piling your enchantments onto. If you want, you can play around a little bit with the numbers of some things like Sentinel Eyes and the Hydra. There's also a 2-mana flying creature similar to Hero that reduces R spells, and so that one comes in with some built-in evasion. The Hero of Iris has the heroic ability, so there's a bit of a trade-off. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I think it is dependent on what your matchups are, what you're going against, and if you're even piling enchantments onto the creature in the first place, which means you're probably already in a pretty bad position. Overall, the deck is very powerful. I think it's one of the top-tier decks in Pauper, and if you're looking to grind out some fast wins, this is definitely one I would recommend. As always, I'd like to thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more content.